True Crime with Just Julie rolling around again. Let's get started. I hope you enjoyed the winter theme. Pre-season. Alright. So we got some new hot goss this week. Hot off the presses. Everson Griffin. So he was most recently playing for the Minnesota Vikings, I believe a few years ago. And he was pulled over on 5/28/24, the 28th of May, around 11:30 p.m. on an interstate in Minneapolis in his Bentley. He was going 82 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone. And when the officer pulled him over for speeding, he said it smelled like alcohol up in there, and his eyes were all watery. And then Everson had the nerve to tell him, "I drank today, but it was 1 p.m., like 10 hours ago." Like that makes sense. Anyway, so he blew with the sobriety testing a .10 level, which of course is above the typical 0.08 level. So he was legally too drunk to drive, allegedly. And then they also allegedly found coke in a pocket of his pants. So that's a bad time to have that in the pocket of your pants. And this is the second suspicion of drunk driving charge in a year. He remained in jail for a couple days until Saturday, June 1st. He's on a $12,000 non-cash bond, and he'll be back in court on 6/13/24. Another suspicion of drunk driving charge to add to the roster, allegedly. So I know y'all tuned in Championship League final last week. If you want some recaps on that, we discussed it in the Tailgate update that was released on Monday. So an amazing game. Real Madrid, did what Real Madrid does. But on the back end, there's actually 56 arrests total for the entire day. The majority were for people trying to break into the stadium without tickets. Breaches of security is what they call them. But then 3 pitch invaders or streakers are being charged actually legally for running onto the field. I believe they were all in the first minute of the game. 3 different people, and so they are getting charged legally for entering the field. So we'll follow that. But apparently the going-ons at major games, behind the scenes major sporting events is wild. Brandon Pettigrew, former Lions TE, and Brandon Pettigrew was arrested last Sunday morning at a Dallas 7-Eleven. I got a couple questions. Was the slurping machine broken again? Did they not have that good pellet ice at the fountains? Because I get mad when that happens too. And there's a video of this going around. Sometimes it's just easier to talk about than actually see this stuff, but if you want to see it, it's definitely out there. He punched a glass front door while conversating with the cops in the 7-Eleven. So that is what he got in trouble for. I think they make glass different now, so it didn't break the entire panel, but it definitely left a hole, a big one. So anyway, it's not clear why the police got there in the first place. It was because of him. They were already there, what the initial issue was. But they were talking with him, then he punched the door, then they were going to handcuff him, and he was kind of fighting them on it. And then there was maybe 4 cops there, and so some of them pulled their tasers out and were like, this is going to happen if you don't let him handcuff you. So after that, he was detained peacefully. He was charged with criminal mischief, and he was released on Sunday around 1 p.m. So, yeah. I watched the video through, and it's exactly as I described, and it's definitely really sad to see people struggle with emotional regulation and being in distress. But, okay, to Capita Marcano. So He is in one of the biggest like MLB betting sprees ever. San Diego Padres infielder Marcano was banned from baseball for life for betting on the sport. He made 387 baseball bets for a value of over 150K in 2022 and 2023, like separate bets throughout that time. And one current MLB player and 3 minor league players are also facing 1-year suspensions after pitching on base or betting on baseball games for amounts less than 1K. Yeah, so again, this, I believe they said this is like one of the largest numbers of people that they've collected in like a season or off season or whatever for gambling. The MLB is definitely struggling, as is the NBA and the NFL. So yeah, this lovely individual Marcano will no longer be playing baseball. Banned for life with Jonte Porter over in the NBA. They can reminisce about how it feels. Speaking of Jonte Porter adjacent, one of his co-conspirators was arrested this week in New York City, in the Brooklyn, hence the skyline, for in the same gambling shenanigans as Porter. His name is Long Fee Pham, but his nickname is Bruce. Was arrested on Tuesday and is charged with conspiring with others to defraud a sports betting company by placing bets on the former NBA player, which was Jonte Porter. And Bruce tried to flee the country with a one-way ticket to Australia, so that didn't work. Or maybe he should have left sooner. I don't know. And there's still 3 co-conspirators on the loose, which they are looking for. So watch out, because they already got Bruce before he could go to Australia. And Allegiant Stadium, finally a story because of an absence of crime, which we love here. The Raiders Stadium is one of the safest stadiums in the U.S., which is a new feeling for the Raiders. It ranks 9th in violent crime rate rankings with a score of 35.41 and shares 7th place in total crime index rankings with some other stadiums. See, that's the kind of like confidence building. When they say it's safe, they're like, well, actually, it's still 9th in violent crimes, and the total crime index is still pretty high, but it's not that high. It's like our concept of a safe stadium is loose in football, apparently. Yeah, and the stadium is rated safer than any other stadium in the AFC West. Kansas City in particular has a very high crime rating. But somehow none of these numbers make me feel that much safer. So there's that. All right, and we got some updates. All right, ready for this, y'all? Wander Franco, the Tampa Bay Rays have extended his administration leave until July 14th. It's not really clear why. I guess because they're planning on undergoing the case in the Dominican Republic in June. So maybe they're hoping that if he's found not guilty, which I can't see being a possibility, but maybe that he could still return in time for July. So maybe that's what they're thinking. I'm not sure, but it's an interesting move. Shohei Ohtani, his interpreter here, Mizuhara, pled guilty to bank and tax fraud on Tuesday in federal court in Santa Ana, California, and he admitted to stealing nearly $17 million from Shohei to pay off his gambling bet. So he has pled guilty, and the Dodgers, MLB, everybody's sort of closed their investigation on Shohei and Mizuhara, so that should be sort of, with him pleading guilty, that was sort of the ending to the saga, at least to the baseball world for the most part. Baseball continued. Over here is Danny Serafini. Danny and his alleged co-conspirator pled not guilty to attempted and burglary on June 3rd in their arraignment in Roseville, California. So they went a not guilty route. And Jackie Robinson over here, the statue theft, where they only left the shoes. So they had a picture, it was kind of creepy, of like just the upper torso of the new Jackie Robinson statue, but it is on the way. It's currently being built in Loveland, California, where the initial statue was built. They're using bronze with a wax coating. The MLB donated twice what they needed to build Robinson. So the extra funding is going to go to things like landscaping and putting up decorative borders so that cars can't get very close to the new statue. The artist of the OG statue passed away in 2022. So his co-worker and friend will use the mold that still exists to make the statue, which makes that friend feel more comfortable. As he grieves his friend, he also wishes he could have been there for this because this one means a lot to them. But he does still have his mold, so that's one positive. And all right, and now we got Ryan Garcia. Garcia's attorneys are saying that both the A and the B samples were contaminated, which is kind of wild. By supplements that he was taking. Allegedly, some approved supplements tested positive for the ostarine, the PED that was found in the blood, in his urine. So his attorneys are saying it's in his supplements, that's why it's there. And then one of the companies of the supplements in question are not thrilled. They're actually calling out Garcia's attorney for being wrong because they don't want that kind of bad press. And they're like, no, we do not have that in our supplements because they don't want that kind of press. And so now we're getting some backlash. Apparently all the samples are contaminated. I don't know. We'll let it play out. IndyCar, Penske, Roger Penske said, wow, y'all really overblew this one. He was quoted saying, it always bothers you when people take shots at you, in an interview with the AP Press last Thursday. But you know something, we have a strong foundation. People know who we are and how we operate. I guess I'll have to move on. Then comes the claim that's all over the headlines. But sometimes when there's blood in the water, people like to go after you, and I think that's what's happened. I'm fine. I mean, we moved on. Why is it that everybody always has a conspiracy that everybody's against them when it doesn't work in their favor? Like Ryan's like, no, I don't have ostarine. And IndyCar's like, oh, there's blood in the water for us. Maybe take some accountability, okay? Like, I'm open to the idea that maybe some of these, at least with Garcia, I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna wait, obviously, to see the trial, not the trial, but the rulings. But a little accountability goes a long way, okay? All right, basketball. Royce Wright. The only politician, former NBA player that I know of, Royce, has more hot goss coming out from every week. So last week it was about spending like 100,000 or whatever on questionable choices, like $1,200 at a strip club that was allegedly for lunch for a campaign event. And now he's back in the news because he has trouble paying his child support. He had been ordered to the court to pay child support after he fell behind 6 separate times between 2020 and 2023. So that was pretty big in the headlines this week, and not generally the kind of thing that we're looking for as an example, but you know, there's always extenuating circumstances. We're just reporting on what we find out, but yep, more in Royce Wright's his corner. So I'm just gonna leave that with him. Okay, Terrence Shannon Jr. his rap charge trial was assigned a new judge due to scheduling conflicts. And in a status conference on Tuesday, they covered that, and the prosecution tried to delay the trial by 2 days, but that was denied. So we're still going to be on schedule starting on June 10th. No delays, just a new judge. And the judge who was supposed to be there is being the trial is going longer than anticipated, so he's getting a new one. And they're also getting a third alternate juror, so that's nice. A little hubbub in Terrence Shannon Jr.'s situation there. Sometimes prosecution and defense like a specific judge or use certain methods to work with certain judges over others, and so they may have to, because they may know how judges tend to rule or past rulings, so they may be having to recalibrate. But anyway, don't know. Javon Porter has been formally charged for this month with a DWI after an arrest in April, where he was going 76 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone, and allegedly had a .162 blood alcohol level. So yeah, but he's practicing in Maryland, so that's something. This was wild because I thought Angel Di Maria was going to be off our roster. He hasn't really done anything, saying he's going to Inter Miami with Messi, which is great. We're going to kind of leave it there, the two Argentinians, after both of them have gotten death threats in their country of origin. But nope, he's still here because he's facing a second death threat. He based on apparently still the thought of him coming back to Argentina to play, he's facing another death threat warning situation on that. But I thought we already discussed that, y'all. He's going to Miami. He's not going to Argentina anyway. So they had at the La Madrid and Orono service station on the southern part of the city that he comes from. There was a situation where there's an open fire on the service station, and then they left a note, and translated it says, "We are waiting for you, Di Maria." And then additionally, images shared how the gunshots cracked the door glass of the service station, and the authorities booked it to the scene, so they were there pretty quick, but still terrifying. He's going to Miami. Chill. Anyway, Luis Rubiales. I missed this story. We have to talk about this. Y'all remember when Luis Rubiales' mom went on a hunger strike when she locked herself up in a church? That happened last year. In August of 2023, his mother went on a 2-day hunger strike. She would have gone longer, but she had pre-existing health conditions and wasn't in good shape already. So just 2 days of not eating was too much. So that's but she's I'll die in here. She was totally willing to. Yeah, she says she was begging Hermosa to tell her the truth and said she doesn't mind dying. She said there's a witch hunt for her son and that he didn't do what Hermosa said. Yeah, anyway, she went to the hospital. She's still with us, so I guess she's stabilized, but it was definitely kind of scary health-wise. And I have two thoughts on that. I just want to shame Lewis again for problematic behavior. His problematic behavior hurting so many people, because there's a ripple effect every time someone does really anything. And obviously in true crime, that's usually a negative ripple. And he should think about how people in his life, like his mother, will respond to his scandalous ways, okay? And then also, my second thought is some conditions, including mental ones, can pass through families, from son, mother to son. So that's all I'm going to say about that. All hockey. So this is really interesting. We had someone who had the same injury as Adam Johnson, like the slice to the neck, but he survived from the 80s, and he wanted to talk about his story a little bit recently, and so I thought we're going to highlight it here because it has to do with that situation and then other issues that we take very seriously here in the True Crime Update. So in 1989, former NHL player Clint Malarchuk's throat was slashed by a skate while he was a goalie for the Buffalo Sabres. He said the blood was like rhythmically shooting out of his neck, and that's because of his heartbeat. You know, like when the heart beated, then yeah. Anyway, he recalls that he knew he was in major trouble. He told the equipment manager to tell his mother that he loved her, and then he told somebody else to hold his hand because he was dying. And he was only 27 years old at the time. Malarchuk said there's some key reasons that he survived. He was on the same side of the ice as the training room, as the locker room. He says he is sure he would have bled out if they had to travel the entire length of the ice to get him out. And I've seen how slow they are, especially in the 80s. That's probably true. Their emergency like call is questionable, especially back in the day. So, you know. And then also his medical trainer went to Nam, so he was kind of used to like some wild-ish going down. And so he was like, "Oh, I've seen stuff like this before." I'm like, "Oh no." Anyway, so he was used to like triaging people in like rough circumstances with some really crazy injuries. So he was like, "Yep, done Nam, I can do this." So they cut through the jugular, which is usually lethal, but they were like 1 inch from the carotid, which will definitely do it. So he was really lucky that way. Like it was really, really close. Oh no. So and he played 10 days later after getting his jugular sliced, which is some 1989-ish. Okay. And then he said the next years when he really began to struggle, he was having like nightmares and flashbacks with his like near death experience, which is really understandable. He wasn't sleeping. And he was like suffering, but he said he didn't tell anybody the personal like hell that he was in. He went with his friends to a party. He had a couple of beers, but he didn't stay that long. But he had a broken thumb from playing hockey. So he took a couple of painkillers for that, but then he took like extra because he was like hoping that the pills would make him sleepy because he was having so much trouble sleeping. So he took like a handful, well, 5, which depending on what medicine that is can mean a lot. A lot. Not if you're Alex Murdoch, but for the average person, 5 can be kind of a lot. Especially mixing it with alcohol. Do not advise. So anyway, yeah, and he woke up at the hospital. It's not clear how he got there. I mean, at least he didn't elaborate on that. And his heart had actually stopped, so he did. His heart had stopped, so he died again technically, but came back. And they asked him whether he was like trying to off himself, and he said no. But then he told him like all the things that he was struggling with, and then at that point he got diagnosed with depression, anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder. And so like that was kind of helpful. He had his mental health stabilized, he got medicine and help and stuff like that. He kept playing, and then he also started coaching. Because he said he was never really able to play at the same level after that, but you know, he was coaching. But then he saw a similar injury happen in 2008 to someone else's neck, and it like sent him like spiraling back in a mental health like issue. And so he tried to take his own life in 2008. And he didn't die, obviously, but he does have the bullet still in his head. We have discussed before when we talked about the Kansas City shootings that leaving bullets in is more common than what people think. But anyway, and he was diagnosed with PTSD in 2008. which he said has been really helpful because now he can get like help for that specific need that he has. He wished he had mental health support back in 1989 when it happened, but they definitely didn't have that. He's glad that in 2008 they already had. And so he had these parting words for us, and I thought they were really sweet. That's why I share my story. I want others to seek help and know they're no less of an tough old cowboy if they do. He calls himself a tough old cowboy. So we always support getting help, speaking. Call 988 if you're having any kind of ideations or anything like that. If you need somebody to talk to, they can help give you resources in your local area. Always call, always get the help that you need. You matter, we all matter. Please, like, we need you here. So if you're having those thoughts, please call. Yes. Okay, so on to football. McManus got kicked off the Washington Commanders team squad. They're like, they smell that problem a million miles away. They're like, hell no. So like, off he went. Isaiah Buggs. So besides the whole animal cruelty charges that we discussed last week, that are still like processing, we're learning a little bit more about his business issues. We had kind of heard before about the hookah bar. I didn't know that he owned a hookah bar that he got in trouble for when he pushed the cop who was trying to like talk to him at the hookah bar that was like had allegedly tried to push. That he like they had too many people at the hookah bar. I didn't realize that bar was his, but it is. Yeah, so he might be losing the hookah business. I just learned he had. He's currently late in renewing all of his licenses anyway, but they may not decide to give him one if he does request it. They have many 911 calls from surrounding businesses about the state of the outside of their business after the weekend. Apparently, it looks like a tornado rolled through. The business has received 8 citations for like, I guess like trash and maybe occupancy. I'm not really sure, since 2022. 8 different citations, which feels like a lot. There's reports of overflowing trash around the business, which Bubs was like, I hire a trash company, so that's not true. But it's like, well, you have to like collect the trash and like put it together. Like the trash people don't like clean your trash off of the ground when they come, they just throw it away. But anyway, there's also been an issue with firearms being pointed at way too many people in the business and in the business parking lot from like multiple people in different settings. So it's not particularly safe either, apparently. And so they're kind of hoping to nix the business. Will Bugs get charged with animal cruelty? Will he keep his hookah business? We don't know, but we'll let you know when we do. Okay, Henry Ruggs. He's another guy I thought that we would not be seeing again this week. I thought he was off the roster. We'll talk about him when he gets out of jail, but no, he's back because he's blew up the headlines just because he's working at the Nevada's governor mansion during his prisoner work program. Like, okay, we knew he was in a prisoner work program, but it's big in the news that he works at the Nevada governor mansion. Like, he's got to work somewhere. I don't know. It was a big deal, so I'm going to report it. But Jerry Jones, in his lawsuit, I mean, not his lawsuit, he's going to be in a lawsuit. There's going to be an NFL Sunday ticket package lawsuit. They're facing a class action antitrust lawsuit because the NFL has an exclusive arrangement with YouTube, which apparently is a violation of the antitrust law. I think because there's only specific games that only NFL ticket has or something like that. So it's $2.4 million, 2.4 million residential subscribers and 48,000 businesses allege that the NFL's bundling of all out-of-market games into a single package has artificially inflated its price and curbed competition. The NFL says no, we didn't. So anyway, this could have really big ramifications. A favorable verdict could potentially cost the NFL $6.1 billion, which is like $2,500 per subscriber, maybe. And Roger Goodell, Jerry Jones, and Robert Kraft will be testifying at this lawsuit, so it'll be interesting. So last week, the Kansas City Chiefs went to the White House because, you know, they won the Super Bowl and that's like a thing. So they met with Biden there, and Biden made a little statement about the parade, which I thought was really sweet. He said, we saw pride give way to tragedy, speaking about the event. A beloved mom, local DJ, was gunned down. And dozens were injured. And then he said, the sweet part, among this chaos, this team stepped up again. So that was really nice for him to acknowledge just how much the team did in response. It's very sweet. We may have to recap that again, but it might make me a little emotional, so not today. All right. So there is, if you want to look up the 7-Eleven video with Pettigrew, you might also want to catch Tyler and Rogers. They had the interrogation room footage when they were like really telling him what the charges, what he was being charged with. They had that. It was like an 8-minute clip. He got released by King 5, so go there if you want to see the whole thing. And like, I kind of had a hard time with it because I have like 0.1 amount of empathy for this person. So like when I see him distressed because of the charges, it annoyed me. So anyway, he starts crying. He's like rocking, like has a hand under him. He's like, ah, and he's like rocking back and forth with his hands on his face, you know, and like that whole vibe. But I will just say that he looked upset but not surprised. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So Julian Edelman dropped some hot goss on the behind the scenes event at the roast on his podcast, Games with Names. So he said, pre-show, we're in the green room, Randy Moss, Drew Bledsoe, me, Rob Gronkowski, we're just chilling in there, Edelman said. Bill is opening up, he's having fun, he's talking war stories, talking rookies, doing shit we know what Bill's about. But it was like amplified because he's excited to see guys because he doesn't have a job anymore. I feel like Edelman could have been a little more subtle with that, but we know what he's trying to say. Anyway, the tone of the room, however, changed when Kraft walked in. Edelman said the tension in that room, though, could have fucking cut glass. It was so awkward. I was just like, oh shit, this could be some fireworks. So he just like booked it. Bledsoe, who was also at the on the podcast, said it was some crazy shit and it was very, very real. However, the tension didn't actually boil over. It seemed like the two of them like went to the side and had a little heated conversation or something. And it was always kind of tense and awkward, but it looks like maybe some resolution. Who knows? But that's just a little information from behind the scenes on the roast, so that was interesting to me. So this is a picture of. I wrote an article about people. Anyway, this is him hitting a concrete part of a stadium that wasn't really well padded, and he got like a knee injury. So that's what the picture is. The NCAA tried to have Bush's defamation lawsuit dropped, but a judge denied that last week. So things will roll on. Let's go. You know, like so many lawsuits get dropped before they even started. So it is important to note when they don't get dismissed because it is so common. And so it not being dismissed is a pretty big deal. because that means that they feel like he has a strong enough case that it shouldn't just get tossed to the sideline. So cannot wait to see it. Um, so Jason Kelsey, he's ignited the internet again. Apparently he has a thing about not washing his feet or his lower legs in the shower. And this has sparked an entire debate via social media. And I want to hear it from the fans. Do y'all do a deep foot scrub and lower leg washing situation? And it's not just, I get the theory that like all of the soap like sort of runs down, so it like has a cleaning effect. I'm definitely not one of those people. I do scrub in between each toe, so this is really not up my alley, but I also can see how people would feel like there's enough suds and all that it's okay. So like, you know, I don't see this as a huge issue, but yeah, so one of his followers claimed that there's actually a study that found more bacteria on those who actively wash their legs and feet while bathing. So bathing. So there's that. Did not find the study. So but maybe. And Jason said, "Let him know from the rooftop." But so a direct quote from Jason is, "All of y'all have." Okay, this is funny. "All of you have been fed diabolical lies that washing every crevice of your body and hair all the time is somehow better or healthier." Jason joked, "Any dermatologist not in bed with big soap will agree." "Hot spots are all that is necessary and actually leads to cleaner, healthier skin," he continued. Big soap. Always getting in bed with big soap. Some people might say that he's making fun of a certain speech from a certain person who shall not be named, just based on the wording of what Jason Kelsey said. If you know, you know. So, again, what's your take on that? And James Franklin here, he's going to finish this out for the week. Penn State apparently was unable to determine if there's an interference, if an interfering medical decision violation was done by Coach Franklin based on Big Ten standards and NCAA bylaws. Penn State was very upset over the jury's findings that awarded the former team coach Dr. Lynch $5.25 million. They say no player's health is ever compromised, ever, even though there were 6 incidents involving football player injuries between 2016 and 2019, when Lynch was being challenged by Franklin over Lynch's medical call and an injury. Yeah, usually, allegedly, for the intent to play them earlier than advised, or to have them undergo the therapy that is best for the team and not the players overall. So that's what it appears that it typically was, maybe. I'm like, that's an awful lot of time, so maybe Penn State can go back and find that Franklin did violate something with all the information that you have from the lawsuit now, so that's nice. Yeah, with all the mud that the lawsuit dragged out of your program's closet, you probably have enough. But I'm just trying to help. Penn State, I'm just trying to help. Alright, so that is it for this week. We will see you again next week. Again, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, ding, and